The girls.
Hi everyone. Well, there's a very disturbing trend lately of treating school children like criminals. Police handcuff charged 6-year-old girl for misbehaving. A 6-year-old in Georgia was stuffed and cuffed for basically having a tantrum. Isn't it strange though how parents are expected to control their children without handcuffing them? I mean, if a parent put flex cuffs on their 6-year-old, they'd probably have their child taken away for child abuse, but somehow it's okay for the school and the police to do that. And this is only one example. 10 disgusting examples of very young school children being arrested, handcuffed, and brutalized by police. And what are they being arrested for? Things like giving another student a wedgie, burping in gym class, spraying perfume on yourself, throwing paper airplanes, sassing off to the teacher, really just about anything. And by the way, this isn't the only way in which teachers are going too far. This also came up recently. Public schools in action. Teacher refuses to let kindergartner use bathroom during test. Teacher makes her sit in her own excrement, gives her trash bag to wrap around herself afterward. School is supposed to be a place where children can go to learn and socialize with other children and have fun and have good experiences, not be treated worse than they would if they were in Guantanamo. So what's going on? How did this happen? Well, here's a really good article from The Guardian. The US schools with their own police. Basically what happened was people fell for fear tactics. They were told that there should really be police in school because of things like rise in juvenile crime and terrible incidents like what happened at Columbine. So they should have police there to protect the kids. But then what happened was this became like an extension of the zero tolerance policy that they had towards drugs. It became zero tolerance towards anything. And they started to ticket children as young as, you know, in first grade, little 6-year-olds, for all kinds of things that are really just normal childhood behavior and that would not be crimes or misdemeanors if they were committed, let's say, or performed by adults. You know, if an adult burps, it's not a crime. You don't get a ticket for that. You don't get a ticket for spraying perfume on yourself in university class. But that's what they started doing in the school. And a lot of these kids are from poor families, so the parents can't pay the tickets. The tickets just rack up. And then what happens is, at a certain point, when they get old enough, the way that they have to pay for these tickets then is by going to jail. And what's worse about this is that when they then apply for funding, for, you know, financial aid for college, and they're asked, have you ever been arrested? Well, they are no longer eligible for financial aid. So this is really discriminatory against poor people especially. This is what you call the school to prison pipeline. Kids are treated like criminals in school. They get used to this kind of treatment. They're used to living in a kind of police state. They rack up all these tickets, and if you can't pay for them, you go to jail, and then you're not going to college, and you've already been in jail. So it's a surefire way to turn kids into criminals. And this is only one of several things that have been done with the educational system to turn it into like a kind of processing plant that works in the favor of the powers that be, of the New World Order. First, what they did was they dumbed down the school system, because the worst thing to have is an informed, intelligent, capable population. So they rank very low academically, and that has to do with the reforms in the school system, dumb everything down. Another thing they started to do is put children on medication. They're drugging the kids. And another thing that they started to do was bring in all these ed programs. Drug ed, pregnancy prevention, although it doesn't prevent it, and neither does the drug ed. They actually encourage those behaviors, bullying ed, suicide, it's all the same. What they're doing is they would go into a town where there was no drug problem, and despite opposition from, you know, the parents and the school board, they would find a way to eventually get them to accept having a drug ed program. Well, they said, our kids don't even know what drugs are. We don't have a drug problem. What do we need this for? But it was part of the plan to actually get the kids on drugs. I know it sounds hard to believe, but that's what they want. They want the kids to be stupid and screwed up and drugged up and having been to prison and totally disenfranchised, because then they can, use them as slaves in the prison industrial complex and have them make cruise missiles and things like that. So they would bring these programs in, and children are very susceptible. They're very impressionable and influenceable. So you start talking to the kids about drugs. Have you ever seen one of these books? They list like every pharmaceutical known to man and like give the kids all the details. What do they need to know all this stuff for? They really don't. And what happens is you just keep talking to the kids about drugs and pregnancy and sex and suicide and bullying, and what you end up with is more of all these problems. You even create them when they didn't exist before. So there's like a multi-pronged approach to just completely screw up the kids, turn them into good slaves, and turn them into, well, quite literally slaves in the private prison industrial complex. And to just also generally dumb them down and get them used to being policed, living in a police state. That's all that this accomplishes. What I'd like to know is, are there any good schools left? If you have children, do you send them to school? And how is their school experience? Are these anomalies, or is this the norm, what I'm reading about here? Well, leave me your comments, and thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time. Black girl arrested and assaulted for dropping a piece of cake at school. Police brutality. Of note, the majority of the victims of this kind of policy are racial minority students, African American and Latino.